Rain pounded the tin roof of Emily Johnson's cramped Brooklyn apartment, each drop a stark reminder of the world outside. Her desk lamp flickered, casting dim light over scattered medical textbooks. Emily, a final-year medical student, sat hunched at the table, eyes scanning the same paragraph repeatedly. Exhaustion clung to her, the toll of 2 part-time jobs and relentless study sessions weighing heavily. Yet she pressed on, fueled by a dream that felt tantalizingly close, yet impossibly distant, a prestigious medical scholarship that could lift her from poverty. The apartment was small, its walls marred by years of neglect. A sagging couch sat in the corner beside a pile of unwashed dishes Emily hadn't had time to tackle. This was home, shared with her Aunt Susan, who'd raised her since her parents' death in a car accident years ago. Susan was more than family. She was Emily's rock, her reason to keep fighting. The scholarship wasn't just for her, it was for Susan, who'd sacrificed everything to keep them afloat. Emily's pen scratched across a notebook, her handwriting jagged from fatigue. The rain's drone faded into the background until her phone rang, its sharp tones slicing through the quiet. The screen read, "Aunt Susan." Her stomach knotted. Susan never called this late unless something was wrong. "Emily, I fell." Susan's voice quavered, thick with panic. "Sprained my ankle. Bad. I can't walk. And I'm due at the plaza tonight. If I miss this shift, they'll fire me. I'm still on probation." Emily sat upright, heart racing. "Are you okay? Where are you?" "Home now," Susan said, her voice cracking. "Tried to tough it out, but it's swelling. They sacked 2 cleaners last month for missing work. I can't lose this job, Emily. It's all we've got." The words hit like a blow. The Plaza, New York's iconic hotel, was Susan's lifeline. The pay was modest, but it covered rent, groceries, and occasional medical bills. Since her parents' death, Emily had watched Susan pour her strength into that job, enduring long hours and aching joints. Losing it would unravel everything. Emily's shot at school, their home, their fragile stability. "I don't know what to do," Susan whispered, stifling a sob. "Emily, could you, just this once, cover my shift? Just clean a few rooms, please?" Emily's breath caught. Her scholarship exam was days away, and she wasn't prepared. Her jobs, waitressing at a diner and shelving books at the library, left her drained. Covering Susan's shift meant stepping into an unfamiliar world where a single misstep could cost Susan her job. The Plaza wasn't just any hotel. It was a haven for the elite, where perfection was demanded by moguls and magnates. Susan had spoken of the VIP floor, where a smudged glass could mean a reprimand. She paced the tiny room, her eyes landing on a framed photo of her mother, smiling gently, a woman who'd always said, "Kindness is strength, no matter how harsh the world is." Emily drew resolve from that memory, letting it ground her. Susan had given her everything. This was her chance to repay her. "Okay," Emily said softly. "I'll do it." Susan's relief was tangible. "Thank you, Emily. The uniform's behind the door, ID's in the pocket. Use the side entrance, you'll be fine." Emily hung up and moved quickly. The uniform was oversized, its fabric coarse against her skin. She pulled her hair into a tight bun, mimicking Susan's style, and clipped on the ID badge bearing Susan's name. In the mirror, she looked like someone else. Not a medical student, but a hotel cleaner, unseen by the world she was about to enter. Grabbing a flimsy umbrella, she stepped into the rain, her shoes soaking as she boarded a late bus to Manhattan. The city blurred by, neon lights warped by wet windows. Emily's mind churned. She'd heard Susan's tales of the plaza cleaners scolded for minor errors, wealthy guests who ignored them or treated them like fixtures. The injustice stung. Susan worked harder than anyone, yet to those in power, she was expendable. Emily felt the weight of that unfairness, a reminder of the world she aimed to escape through her studies. As the bus approached the plaza, Emily braced herself. She wasn't just cleaning rooms tonight. She was safeguarding Susan, their home, their future. "Just a few hours," she murmured, stepping off the bus. The hotel loomed ahead, its golden facade gleaming against her rain-soaked reality. She swiped Susan's ID at the staff entrance, heart pounding, and entered a world that wasn't hers. But tonight, it would be. Emily stepped through the plaza's staff entrance, the air cool and laced with polished wood and costly cologne. Her sneakers squeaked on the gleaming floor, and she gripped Susan's ID badge, its edge digging into her palm. A gruff supervisor, eyes glued to a clipboard, snapped her assignment. VIP floor 18th, presidential suite needs a reset. Stay out of sight and don't mess it up. He shoved a cleaning cart at her and turned away, leaving Emily to navigate a world she knew only through Susan's tired stories. The service elevator hummed upward, each ping tightening Emily's nerves. She wasn't trained for this. Susan's instructions replayed in her mind. Empty trash, replace towels, align toiletries perfectly. But doing it herself felt like balancing on a ledge. The VIP floor was for the untouchable. Tycoons, celebrities, people who'd only notice her if she aired. One slip, and Susan's job, their lifeline, could be gone. Emily clutched the cart, her knuckles white, and whispered, "Just get through it." The elevator opened to the 18th floor, a corridor of rich burgundy carpet and gold-trimmed walls. Crystal sconces glowed softly, making the space feel like a palace. Emily pushed the cart, its wheels creaking, passing heavy doors marked with numbers, not names. Behind them, she imagined, lives of effortless wealth, worlds apart from her own. Textbooks, diner shifts, a leaking roof. She swiped Susan's keycard at the presidential suite, the door clicking open to reveal a breathtaking space. Marble floors shone under a chandelier, velvet curtains framed towering windows, and a grand piano stood untouched in a corner. It was stunning, but foreign. Emily shook off her awe and began working, moving with the care of someone who couldn't afford to fail. She scrubbed surfaces, fluffed pillows, aligned perfume bottles with surgical precision. Each task was a plea to protect Susan's job. Her thoughts drifted to the unfairness of it all. Susan had spent years cleaning rooms like this, her hands rough, her back bowed, only to be treated as disposable. Emily recalled Susan's quiet story of a guest berating her over a single streak on a mirror, as if her existence was a nuisance. The memory burned. In this world, people like Susan and Emily were invisible, their value tied to how flawlessly they served those who never looked twice. She was wiping the fireplace when the walkie-talkie crackled. Emergency cleanup, presidential suite, guest left early, next arrival's imminent, anyone free? Emily's pulse spiked. She was already stretched thin, but she couldn't risk Susan's reputation. She pressed the button, voice trembling. "I'm here, I'll take it." "Copy. Hurry up," the supervisor barked. Emily redoubled her efforts, hands shaking as she polished the already immaculate suite. She was kneeling by the coffee table, straightening magazines when the door clicked open. She froze, expecting a colleague or manager. Instead, a smooth voice cut through, laced with amusement. "This is new. I didn't order company tonight." Emily turned slowly. Michael Bennett stood in the doorway, striking in a tailored suit, his dark hair flecked with gray. His presence dominated, commanding yet distant. He pocketed his phone, one eyebrow raised as he studied her. "The plaza's getting inventive," he said, smirking. "Subtle, I'll give them that." Emily's mouth dried. I'm just cleaning," she stammered, clutching the cloth tightly. Michael tilted his head, his smile fading. "No need for the act. I told them I don't want extras. But you're convincing. The uniform, the nervous look. Nice touch." Her heart thundered, humiliation surging. "I'm not acting," she said, voice barely audible. "I'm here for my aunt. She's injured. I'm covering her shift." He chuckled, unconvinced. "Right, the innocent routine. They've tried this before. But you're better. Almost fooled me." He waved dismissively. "You can go. I just want peace." Tears stung Emily's eyes, her vision blurring. His words stripped her bare. She wasn't Emily, the medical student who'd memorized biochemistry and comforted strangers at the free clinic. To him, she was nothing. A prop, a transaction. Less than human. The injustice, the way her effort to help Susan was twisted into something vile, shattered something inside her. "I'm not for sale," she snapped, voice breaking. Tears streamed down her face as she stood, the cloth dropping. Her elbow bumped the cart, dislodging Susan's ID badge and a small photo of her mother, the one she carried for strength. Emily's breath hitched. She couldn't lose it, but she couldn't face Michael again. "I'm sorry," she choked, wrenching the door open and fleeing into the hallway, the opulent silence swallowing her sobs. Michael Bennett stood alone in the presidential suite, the chandelier's glow casting long shadows. The door Emily had fled through stood ajar, a silent rebuke. Her words, "I'm not for sale," rang in his ears, raw and piercing, cutting through his assumptions. He'd seen countless people vie for his favor, their smiles rehearsed, their motives clear. But Emily's tears, her trembling voice, weren't staged. They were real, and he'd caused them. His eyes fell to the floor, where the cleaning cart sat, crooked. 2 items caught his attention, a staff ID badge and a worn photograph. He knelt, picking them up. The badge read, "Susan Johnson," but the face wasn't Emily's. The photo showed a woman with a soft smile, her eyes kind yet weary, like someone who'd borne too much. Michael's chest tightened. He flipped the photo over, reading a faded inscription. "For Emily, my heart." This was personal, not a ploy. He'd misjudged everything. Guilt gnawed at him, sharp and unfamiliar. Michael was a man of control, his life a series of calculated steps. Deals, acquisitions, dominance. He'd honed his ability to spot deceit, always assuming the worst. But tonight that instinct had failed him. Emily wasn't a schemer. She was someone's daughter, someone's hope. And he'd reduced her to a cruel stereotype, a product of a world that valued wealth over humanity. He pocketed the photo and badge and called security. "This is Bennett. I need footage from the 18th floor, last 2 hours, immediately." His voice was calm, but his hands trembled. In the security office, he watched the grainy video. Emily moved with quiet focus, adjusting towels, polishing surfaces, even straightening a tilted frame. Her actions were careful, respectful, not the calculated charm he'd expected. She was alone, no accomplices, no agenda, just a young woman doing a job that wasn't hers. "Who is she?" Michael asked, his tone low. The security chief shifted. "Badge says Susan Johnson, cleaner for years. But that wasn't her. We can check records." "No," Michael interrupted. "Get me everything on Susan Johnson. Address, family, anything." Back in the suite, Michael opened the file on his tablet. Susan Johnson, 58, Brooklyn resident. No infractions in 7 years at the plaza. 1 emergency contact. Emily Johnson, niece. The name hit him hard. Emily, the girl he'd humiliated. The file noted Emily was a medical student, juggling 2 jobs to afford school. Michael's jaw clenched. He'd seen her kind before. Not in boardrooms, but in his own past. His mother had been a cleaner, her hands chapped from bleach, her dignity worn down by guests who never saw her as human. He'd escaped that world, but at what cost? He'd forgotten its lessons. The photo of Emily's mother lingered in his mind. He recalled his own mother, humming as she scrubbed floors, telling him to be better, but never cruel. He hadn't meant to be cruel, but he'd been careless, and that was close enough. Emily's pain wasn't just personal, it mirrored the injustices his mother faced, the ones he'd vowed to rise above, yet here he was, perpetuating them. Michael paced the suite. He fixed problems, crises, empires, but this wasn't a deal to close. Emily's hurt was real, and so was his responsibility. He couldn't undo his words, but he could act. He dialed his assistant, voice firm. "Find me an address for Emily Johnson in Brooklyn, and set a meeting with the plaza's manager tomorrow. I made a mistake and it's not standing." He tucked the photo into his wallet, a reminder of the woman he'd wronged and the boy he'd been. Emily deserved more than words. She deserved respect. And Michael, for the first time in years, felt a purpose beyond profit. Michael stepped from a cab into Brooklyn's heart, the air thick with wet pavement and faint cooking spices. The low-rise building before him, its paint chipped and windows taped, was worlds from the plaza's grandeur. He adjusted his coat, feeling alien, the weight of Emily's photo and Susan's ID badge in his pocket. He'd come to make amends, but Emily's tear-streaked face made his steps heavy. This wasn't a boardroom where power could fix things. This was real. And he was out of his element. Susan answered the door, leaning on a cane, her eyes cautious but warm. "Mr. Bennett," she said, surprised. "What brings you here?" "I owe your niece an apology," Michael said, his tone steady but humbled. "I made a terrible mistake." Susan studied him, then opened the door wider. "Come in. Mind the mess." The apartment was small, tidy despite its wear, with a worn couch and medical books stacked on a shaky table. Susan sat, wincing as she adjusted her ankle. "Emily's at school now, volunteering at the free clinic. She's always helping someone, even when she's got nothing left." Michael sat, taking in the modest space. "I saw that on the footage. She worked like the suite was her responsibility. I misjudged her." Susan's gaze softened. "She was saving my job. I begged her to go, knowing it was risky. If they knew she wasn't staff, I'd be finished." She reached for a worn notebook on the table. "This is hers. She writes down her mom's sayings to keep going." Susan opened it to a page. "Let kindness shape you, not the world's cruelty." Michael read it, his throat tightening. Emily wasn't just a student, she carried a legacy of resilience. "She doesn't know I'm here," Susan added. "She'd be mortified. But she's been crying since that night, not just because of you, it's everything. School, money, this city that grinds down people like us." Michael nodded, the injustice hitting home. He'd built an empire, but what had he done for those like Susan, like his own mother, who'd scrubbed floors to feed him? "Where can I find her?" he asked. "Medical school, free clinic, room 1012, Susan said. "She's hard to miss." The university campus hummed with students, their chatter contrasting the clinic's sterile calm. Michael found room 1012, peering through the glass door. Emily sat at a desk, sorting medication samples, her white coat oversized but worn with purpose. Her eyes were tired, yet she smiled at a patient, a homeless man, who thanked her quietly. Michael knocked, and Emily looked up, her face shifting from confusion to wary shock. "What are you doing here?" she asked, standing, her voice soft but firm. "I came to apologize," Michael said, stepping inside. "I was wrong, terribly wrong. I saw the footage. You were doing your aunt's job. I let my cynicism make you into something you're not." Emily gripped the desk, her eyes glistening. "You think an apology fixes it? You looked at me like I was nothing, like I was there to be bought." Michael flinched. "I know. I'm surrounded by people who want something. Money, power. I assumed the worst and you suffered for it. But you're not nothing, Emily. You're more real than anyone I've met." She turned away, wiping her eyes. "I was helping my aunt. She's all I have. And you made me feel like I didn't belong, like I'll never belong." Her words echoed the slights Michael's mother had endured. "You belong anywhere you choose," he said. "I want to make this right. My foundation offers scholarships, tuition, expenses, research opportunities." Emily's jaw tightened. "I don't want pity. Scholarships don't erase what happened." She paused, then met his gaze. "If you want to help, fund this clinic. These people need it more than I do." Michael nodded, struck by her selflessness. "Done, and I'll oversee it myself." Over the next weeks, Michael worked with Emily at the clinic, learning patients' names, hauling supplies, listening to her explain treatments with quiet passion. She spoke of her mother, who died without proper care, and her dream to change that. Michael shared his story, his mother's long nights as a cleaner, her death from a treatable illness because they couldn't afford care. Emily listened, her guard easing. They weren't so different, both shaped by loss, both fighting to prove their worth in a world that often looked away. Emily stood in the free clinic's crowded waiting room, her white coat creased from long hours. The scholarship had come through, covering tuition and easing her job burden. But the victory felt empty. At school, whispers trailed her, classmates who saw her as the charity case from Brooklyn. A professor who'd said, "You're capable, but you don't fit a doctor's mold." His words echoed that night at the plaza when she'd been reduced to nothing. Emily buried the doubt, focusing on patience. But it lingered, questioning her place in a world that seemed to push her out. Michael, meanwhile, was changing. Inspired by Emily, he'd funneled resources into the clinic, funding equipment and staff. He'd also launched plans for health centers in underserved areas, stunning his board. One evening, as they sorted supplies, Emily noticed a shift in him. Less guarded, more engaged. He listened to her patient stories, asked questions, even chuckled at her dry humor. But new challenges tested their ease, reminding them how harsh the world could be. One patient, a 9-year-old named Mia, became Emily's anchor. Mia had a congenital heart condition, her frail frame contrasted by fierce eyes. Her mother, a single parent with 2 jobs, couldn't afford treatment. Emily spent hours with Mia, reading adventure tales and singing off-key lullabies during checkups. One night, Mia clutched Emily's hand and whispered, "Will I be okay?" Emily's heart shattered. She vowed to fight for Mia, but the hospital's subsidized surgery waitlist was months long, a cruel reminder of a system that valued profit over lives. Michael saw Emily's pain and offered to fund Mia's surgery privately. Emily hesitated, wary of charity that felt like pity, but Mia's worsening condition forced her hand. "This isn't about me," she told Michael. "It's about her." The surgery was scheduled, and Emily stayed by Mia's side, holding her hand as she fell asleep. When Mia woke, her faint smile was a small triumph, deepening Emily's resolve to fix a system that let children like Mia fall through the cracks. At the plaza, another blow landed. Susan, still limping, was fired for negligence after a guest complained about a misplaced towel. Emily knew it was a pretext. The hotel was shedding older workers for cheaper labor. She confronted the manager, her voice steady despite her fury. "My aunt gave you years of her life and you toss her aside like garbage?" The manager shrugged. "That's how it works." Emily left, fists clenched, the injustice fueling her. Susan, ever resilient, said, "Don't fight for me, Emily. Fight for something bigger." Michael faced his own battles. His board, enraged by his unprofitable community projects, threatened to remove him. At a heated meeting, a director scoffed, "You're squandering our legacy for a bleeding heart cause." Michael stood firm, Emily's influence anchoring him. "Profit isn't legacy," he said. "People are." He thought of his mother, who died because no one cared enough. Emily had shown him a new path, where power could serve, not just dominate. One evening, by the Hudson River, Emily and Michael sat on a bench, the city's hum a soft backdrop. Emily shared her childhood, mocked for patched clothes, hiding in libraries to escape judgment. "I thought hard work would make me belong," she said. "But sometimes it feels like the world's built to keep people like me out." Michael opened up about his own scars, growing up hungry, watching his mother fade, building walls to survive. "I thought success would fill the void," he admitted. "It didn't. You did." Emily blinked, startled. "I didn't do anything." "You showed me what matters," Michael said. "You fight for people like Mia, like Susan, expecting nothing back. I've closed billion-dollar deals, but I've never seen strength like yours." Emily's eyes softened, but doubt lingered. "Strength doesn't change the world, it just keeps you standing." "Maybe," Michael said, "but it's a start, and you're not fighting alone." Their bond deepened, not romantic, but profound. Rooted in shared loss and a drive for change. Emily began to trust Michael, not as a savior, but as a partner. Michael felt alive in a way he hadn't in years, Emily's compassion dismantling his cynicism. They were two people from different worlds, united by a belief that kindness could outlast cruelty, even in a city that often forgot its own. Emily stood in the newly opened Brooklyn Health Center, its clean walls and bright lights a stark contrast to the worn streets outside. The scholarship had carried her through medical school, and now she worked as a doctor at a public hospital, splitting time with the free clinic. Her white coat, now perfectly fitted, bore her name in neat embroidery, but her quiet empathy defined her. She knew every patient's name, their fears, their hopes, and treated them with dignity that transcended status. Emily had forged her future, not with wealth, but with purpose. Michael, too, had transformed. He'd redirected his company's profits to fund community clinics and mental health programs, costing him allies, board members who saw only numbers, not lives. But Michael no longer measured success by profits. Emily had shown him a new metric: impact. He thought of his mother, who died because no one cared enough, and vowed to honor her by caring fiercely. His empire stood, but its heart now beat for service, not conquest. At the health center's opening, Emily took the podium, her voice clear. "My mother believed in a world where everyone mattered," she said, her gaze sweeping the crowd. "She taught me that kindness is power, even when the system says we're invisible." She paused, thinking of Susan, now retired and tending a small garden, and Mia, whose surgery had given her a future. But millions remain unseen, workers like my aunt, children like those we serve here. It's on us to see them, to fight for them. The crowd was hushed, moved. Michael, at the back, felt her words as a call to action. When he spoke, he stepped forward, his usual polish softened by sincerity. "I chased wealth, status, power," he said. "Then I met someone who showed me what's real." His eyes found Emily. She didn't seek glory, she just helped someone she loved, expecting nothing. "She taught me that true wealth is what you give." He stepped down to applause, but his gaze stayed on Emily. She wiped a tear, her heart full. Later, as guests mingled, Emily found Michael outside, the Brooklyn skyline shimmering under a vast sky. "You meant that," she said, not a question. "Every word," Michael replied. "You changed me, Emily. You made me want to be better." She smiled, softer now. "You were always better. You just forgot for a while." Michael hesitated, then pulled her mother's photo from his wallet, kept since that night at the plaza. "This belongs with you," he said, handing it over. "But it reminded me who I wanted to be." Emily took it, fingers tracing the inscription, "For Emily, my heart." Tears welled, but she didn't hide them. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me." Their paths diverged not as lovers but as allies bound by a shared vision. Emily thrived in her work, her empathy a beacon for patience. Michael expanded his foundation, each project a step toward justice. They stayed friends, their bond unspoken but strong. Notes in hospital break rooms, calls about new initiatives, quiet moments needing no words. Susan, from her garden, teased Michael about their first meeting, laughing, "You thought she was a hotel perk? Now you're her partner in crime." Years later, Emily faced a new challenge. The city planned to cut funding for public hospitals, threatening her patients' care. She rallied her community, organizing protests and petitions, her voice now a force. Michael joined her, leveraging his influence to sway policymakers. At a city hall meeting, Emily spoke, her words fierce yet hopeful. "We're not invisible," she said. "Not the workers who clean your offices, not the children who need care, not the dreamers who fight to rise. We're here, and we're building a world where everyone counts." The crowd roared, and the funding was restored. That night, Emily and Michael stood on a rooftop, the city sprawling below. Mia, now a vibrant teenager, joined them, hugging Emily tightly. "You kept your promise," Mia said. Emily held her, tears falling, knowing this was her legacy, not fame but love. Michael watched, the photo's lesson etched in his heart. He'd once chased luxury, but found something greater. a purpose shaped by a woman who never needed to be more than herself. Their story wasn't chance, but choice. To see, to care, to change. And in that choice, they built a world where no one was invisible.